everyone, it's Laura from MontReallyHouse.com, and today I'm going to show you guys how to make a very simple sauerkraut. I have several heads of cabbage here because when I make sauerkraut, I like to make a lot at once because it lasts for a really long time. The first thing I do is I remove a few of the outer layers of cabbage, and that's because you're going to use these later on. Okay, and then we're just going to start chopping this up into small little slithers. Now, if you have a food processor, you can shove this all through a food processor. I have done it with a food processor and I have done it without. Both ways work just fine, so you really don't need anything fancy to make a good amount of sauerkraut. Just going to put it into a big bowl, and the largest bowl that I have is my Instapot insert, and so that's what I use when I'm making sauerkraut. And now I'm just going to sprinkle some sea salt on this. I like to use pink Himalayan salt, and my rule of thumb is that you do about a tablespoon per head of cabbage. So I ended up only using 2 of mine. One was pretty big, so I'm going to do about 2.5 because the one was big. Really, the best way to test if you get the right amount of salt is just to taste it. So whenever I get going here, I'm going to give it a taste after I do this next step, and if it tastes really salty, I'll add some more cabbage in, and if it doesn't taste salty enough, I will add more salt in. Now, when you put the salt on, it's best to let this sit for a couple minutes because that's gonna let your cabbage start to sweat. And the next step, what we're gonna do is we're gonna start massaging this and pounding it down to make the brine. So as the cabbage and salt sit together, it's going to sweat, and as you massage it in, your cabbage is going to make a liquid. That is the brine that your cabbage is going to be under while it is fermenting, sitting out on the countertop. So I like to let this sit for a few minutes just to make this next step easier. And then the best way to do this is just to get your hands in and massaging it. So wash your hands and just get in and start pushing it down and massaging it together. As you massage it down and it starts to create its brine, it shrinks a ton. So this was full to the top, and now it's not even halfway full anymore. And that's completely normal, and that's how you know it's about time for the next step. Whenever you lean it forward and you see some liquid there in the bottom of the container, that means that it's time to start putting it into your mason jar. So I like to use a ½ gallon size mason jar when I make mine. You can put it into a quart size or however much sauerkraut you're gonna make, but I am doing mine. The amount that I cut up is gonna fill up about a ½ gallon size mason jar. So I'm just going to grab a handful, and as I put it into the jar, I'm going to push it down just to make sure that there's plenty of brine. You want it to be packed in pretty tight to make sure there's no air, because that's going to help it not to mold while it's fermenting. All my cabbage in, I like to pour the rest of the brine that was in the pot in there just to make sure I have plenty. And you want to leave a little bit of room here at the top because your veggies are going to expand. So I will leave about 2 inches here. And this is a spot where if you don't have any fermenting tools at all, you can use your cabbage leaves that we just took off of the outside of your cabbage. So you can take your cabbage leaves and you can actually roll them up into a log shape. And this can be used as your weight to put in here to keep your cabbage below the brine. I actually have these little glass weights that I like to use, and I will link these on Amazon if you want to get these. So when you push your weight in, or whatever you're using to weigh down your cabbage, you want to make sure that you see that liquid coming above your cabbage, because that's what's going to help it to not get moldy. So after I do that, then I'm going to put on my lid. And again, no fermenting tools are necessary. You can just put on a regular lid and leave it kind of loose to let some of the air escape. Or I have these little tops that have a nipple at the top with a little hole, and you can place this on, and then you don't have to worry about what we call burping the cabbage. And so this lets it just kind of do it by itself by having that air hole. And as you can see right now, it's really green. I have some sauerkraut that's already finished in the refrigerator, and I want to show you the color comparison. But you can see the difference here in color, and that's going to happen as it ferments on the counter. It's going to turn more to this more yellowy colored green, and that's completely normal. So to ferment your sauerkraut, you just leave it out on the counter. I like it to be either 68 degrees or above, and you can leave it out really as long as you want. When I first started eating sauerkraut, we left it out for 5 to 7 days, but now we go as much as 2 weeks, sometimes even a little bit more than that. The longer it sits out, the more sour it's going to get, so it really depends on your preference. I do suggest if it's your first time ever trying sauerkraut to maybe start with more 5-7 days, but you can always take it off and try it, and if you want to ferment longer, you can set it back out onto the counter. So that's it. That's how easy it is to make sauerkraut. If anyone's here watching for the first time, I would love if you hit that subscribe button. I get out 2 new videos every single week on essential oil education, healthy recipes, and natural remedies. Thank you so much for stopping by our early house.